How are you all doing today? Oh, come on, you're better than that. How are you all doing today? Good, yes, they'll pass. Well, great. My name is Tim Gaulludet. I am a consultant for the company Tomorrow.io, and I wanted to give a presentation a bit about how the United States has approached hydromet in terms of how we've been performing and what we hope to do in the future. My past job, I was the administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. So that's the U.S.'s top hydromet agency. The National Weather Service is the main office for that under NOAA. But quick introduction, if you could advance the slides, please. So my biggest job title is husband and father. This is my family here. My middle daughter is at the mission at the Naval Academy, and my wife and I are both graduates. So that's where I did most of my work. Next slide. As a hydromet officer in the Navy, some of the work I did included serving on an aircraft carrier like the one you see here, the USS Kitty Hawk, where I was the top med officer on the ship. But also, I drove the ship. I was a deck watch officer for 8 hours a day. And driving an aircraft carrier is quite the exciting time, especially when we were engaged in the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns. Next slide, please. I also served in the Arctic for a bit on a submarine. Of course, submarines are some of the biggest oceanographic users, and in the Navy, I was both a hydromet officer and an oceanographer and a hydrographer. And so just an example of some of the environmental forecasting work I had to do. Ice was a big factor for these submarines in the Arctic. Next slide. As was serving in the Pentagon and having to basically be in charge of all the Navy's hydromet services. And that's where I retired. And go on, please. Next one. And a quick sea story before I get into NOAA. When I was a commander, we lived on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and we lost everything in Hurricane Katrina. That was my wife carrying our oldest daughter over the remains of our neighborhood, and we still had a mile to go to get to our slab. My point being is, don't feel sorry for me, but we understand really up close and personal how important a good forecast can be. We evacuated the night before, thank goodness. Some neighbors did not. And it was the National Weather Service's warnings that saved our life. So the work NOAA does and the work that now I advise companies for is important and personal for me. Next slide. And then, so I served in this administrator capacity at this agency, and NOAA is not only the top hydromet office, but we also manage the United States fisheries, and we conduct nautical chart making, as well as a broad range of research, and whether it be oceanography, meteorology, and biology. And it was a fantastic place to work with a $7 billion budget, 16 ships, 9 aircraft, some of which fly through hurricanes to collect critical data. And we even had a team of scientific scuba divers. And I'm a scuba diver myself, and so was my wife. So we definitely enjoyed that aspect of our job there. But currently, go next slide, please. I did not go back to the Trump administration after the first time around, and I wrote a book about it, and it'll be published this fall. This is the book, and it explains why, if you have any interest in it. And from the title, Holding Fast in Heavy Seas, it's everything you might think it might be. But go ahead, look for that in the fall. But currently, to talk a bit about how we did at NOAA under Trump's first term, we did quite well. Improving our American weather model was a top priority. And for example, in 2018, this article was published after our 5-day forecast for Hurricane Florence the track was only 2 miles off of what we predicted 5 days in advance. And these are absolutely critical storms that affect millions of people. And so that's the kind of performance we wanted to continue and even improve upon. Next slide, please. And we launched a number of initiatives too, because we saw that the private sector was advancing, and we believed that increasing the number of partnerships we have with the private sector would do well for us. And so we established this program, the commercial data program, to purchase satellite data and in situ observations from companies that were advancing in remote sensing capabilities. And see, this announcement was from last year, but we established the company in 2020. And it's been growing ever since, and adding new data types, including buoys, satellites, etc. And it's really helping us improve in a range of capabilities, both in the prediction sense and the decision support. Next slide, please. And one of the programs we launched was called EPIC, the Earth Prediction Innovation Center. And this was the new program and office we launched to advance the American weather model, global forecast system. And of course, you know the story about the European model, ECMWF, outperforming in certain scenarios our model. Our goal was to change that, to make ours the best in the world. And we did that a number of ways. Next slide, I'll show you how. One part of the program is to advance the AI component of our modeling. And so I personally led initiatives, this strategy and strategic plan across the entire agency to advance artificial intelligence, not just for weather modeling, but for everything we do, whether it be coral reef monitoring, as well as climate projections. And this is absolutely the future for the United States weather modeling enterprise. Next slide. And we also established a center to do a couple things. One was to curate all the data that would train the AI algorithms. The center also keeps all the algorithms maintained, and thirdly, trains our employees on using the algorithms as well as engineering them and writing the code. So this was a big initiative. We got the U.S. Congress to support it, and it's still moving forward and handling all of NOAA's AI machine learning applications. Go ahead. And in EPIC, the way we're speeding our model improvement is connecting the academic community, and one of the main elements is research projects and master's and graduate PhD work. By connecting the large enterprise of PhD and graduate level researchers, we want to ensure our coding would update rapidly. That wasn't the case before. The National Weather Service has this environmental modeling center, and their mode of operating before EPIC was established was to do it all in-house. And so the bridge between the academic community and cutting edge research, there was a big gap. There was a wide divide. It wasn't happening, and that's why we weren't advancing our modeling. And now this program, the idea is to connect that. Graduate students, their professors, industry as well, and the NOAA federal modelers and employees. And it's still advancing and doing terrific. That's okay, back up, please. Again. Again. One more time. One more time. Again. Go ahead, back up, back up. There, stop. Next, please. Next. Okay, so we made advances and we improved, but we have room for improvement. And this was from 2022, and this is an article I wrote. If you're interested, you could look it up, an op-ed, because in 2022, again, for a hurricane, we made some errors. And when we tried to predict Hurricane Ian just a few days in advance, we warned that Tampa would be right there at the center of the track, and there'd be extreme surge from Tampa Bay. So what that prompted the U.S. military to do to evacuate the entire MacDill Air Force Base, which housed U.S. Special Operations Command and U.S. Central Command. Tens of thousands of employees evacuated, and then the day before, the track jogged right. And they actually had the water levels reduce and decrease in Tampa Bay, and they saw no damage. It was the towns south of Tampa that got the worst hit. And so that error was costly for the U.S. military. It didn't need to be made. So we still have room for improvement. I have ideas here. The rest of my presentation is how to do that. Next slide. You can see it still applies today. I would assume everybody has followed the news in the United States about floods in Texas. If anybody cares about hydromet improvement, you are tracking this. And that was a big error. And these are the Weather Service folks that forecast for this in the office of San Antonio. They're good people. They tried their best, did the best with the tools they had. But I think you saw the timeline here. On July 3rd, before the July 4th holiday in the U.S., the prediction was 3 to 6 inches of rain in that area. Now, they did issue a flash flood watch, which means flooding could occur. But that didn't really catch everybody's attention because the forecast wasn't for severe a deluge that did occur because of the remnants of this tropical storm beforehand called Barry that moved in from the Gulf of Mexico. So that was on July 3rd, and it was only on the early morning of July 4th that the Weather Service issued a flash flood warning and then an emergency around 4 a.m. and the flooding was already occurring. And it was 22 feet above the water level of the Guadalupe River that is when the emergency was issued. So it was just too late. No one evacuated. That prediction should have happened 24 hours prior. And that's the room we need to improve in. And the way I think we need to do it is the rest of this talk. Go ahead, please. And first off, I believe we in the US and everybody in this room really needs to be aware of what's happening in the private sector. You have what SpaceX is doing for the US NASA space agency. You have the same kind of thing happening in the commercial weather enterprise. And I'll explain that. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. So first off, as I mentioned, I'm advising Tomorrow I/O. This is on the lower left here is a depiction of all the terrestrial weather radars in the world. And you can see there's huge areas that aren't being covered. And we're talking about precipitation right now because of those floods. And this is the lack of sensing for destructive precipitation right here. And so to solve that problem, Tomorrow I/O is deploying a constellation of satellites. And if you're interested in this, I'm going to give a dedicated talk tomorrow on the details of their satellite constellation and the new models they're producing that the data are driving. But this constellation is going to have radars and sounders, and it's going to fill that gap in precipitation monitoring around the world. And for my Navy time, you'll see they're going to cover the ocean too, and there's nothing over the ocean. So I'm really keen to get the Navy's eyes and hands on some of that data. Next slide. And so they've also developed these new models, and they're called agentic AI models. And this is an absolute paradigm shift. Please raise your hand if you have been a practicing meteorologist and issued forecasts. Anybody here a practicing meteorologist? I have, okay. So this is kind of counterintuitive, but the models we have now and the data are going to make meteorologists obsolete. And I know that seems like blasphemy to some, but the data and the tools are now where you can feed an agentic AI model that will automate the forecast and the decision support. Go to high ground now. And if we had that kind of tool in Texas, that warning could have been produced 24 hours in advance. And so these are the tools I'm going to argue for. And again, tomorrow I'll talk about the very details of some of these. And there's a range of different models that tomorrow has developed. Next slide. And tomorrow is in Africa. We have a project with Kenya, and tomorrownow.org is supporting farmers in Africa with decision support tools to advise on crop rotation and avoidance of destructive and severe weather. And I encourage you, Ari Davidov is their business development manager, and please get with Ari if you've not met him. Next slide, please. And then a little bit about what the U.S. is doing today. These are from 2 executive orders that President Trump signed recently. And the top one, he's directed that government agencies like the National Weather Service start looking for commercial solutions rather than having the development in the federal government. And I think this is the way to go because that's where Silicon Valley, that's where the cutting edge work is happening. And this is the case, as I mentioned, with modeling, with satellite data and other types of data. And so the commercial private sector weather enterprise is moving at lightning speed. And this is in other areas too, like ship development, you name it. And that's what the directive has really tapped into and wants to get into the US government. The second one is specifically about advancing AI. And these together, I think, are going to transform the US National Weather Service in terms of the data they collect as well as the algorithms and models they use. And I know this because I'm working with their leadership. Go ahead, next one. And a case in point is NOAA has advanced the Weather Service this a certain AI ensemble modeling method called Eagle. And I'm happy to share details again tomorrow if you wish, but this is one of several AI modeling efforts that NOAA is beginning to move forward with and operationalize. And go ahead, next one. And if you're really interested in this, another article I wrote with the CEO of Tomorrow is about this Weather Act in the United States. So when I was the administrator of NOAA, it passed, the first act passed in 2017, and a big part of it was advancing the private sector with support to the public sector. And there's a new reauthorization that Congress has introduced, and we advocated for it to be passed because it calls for expanding those public-private partnerships like the commercial weather data program I pitched earlier. And so this is, we believe, a key element of making the Weather Service perform better going forward and really avoiding what happened in the Texas floods that I talked about earlier. Go ahead. And finally, that's it. I hope that from this talk you realize that launching balloons is going to be a thing of the past, like I did here in Alaska in 2019. And really it's going to be satellite data, automated tools, and even more drones. I don't know if we have any time for questions, Gary. Maybe 5 minutes if you'd like any questions, but thank you for your attention. Raise your hand if you have any questions or even just comments.
Sure, something will come to people later. So, oh, I see someone.
Yes, sir.
Bear with me.
Yeah.
Did you put your hand? Oh, okay.
The 1,200 scientists.
What's your name? I don't mean it that way. And where are you from? South Africa. That's a good point. Now, I mentioned there's a reason I didn't go back to the Trump administration round two, and that's it. Right, all the firings, I don't think. So for the question here is that under Trump's second term, he's been firing large portions of the federal government, including the Weather Service. And I don't support that. And you can't basically go into an administration when you don't support their policies. So I think that's a barrier. In fact, now they're rehiring a lot of the people they fired, and it wasn't something I would have done, and I can't support. In fact, there's better ways to find efficiencies in government. There's a lot of redundancy between NOAA, climate modeling, and Department of Energy and NASA. I think those should be reduced and make one agency in charge of modeling weather and climate. So good question. I don't support that. You can see it's changing. However, as time goes by and more AI modeling is being advanced and used, that will over time retool and probably make room for less of a federal footprint. But firing 100,000 people was not the answer right away for me. Thank you for your question. Any others? Yes, sir.
Thanks for the interesting presentation. Mine is more of a technical question. But, yeah, I just wanted to find out what is the relationship between the Met services and the hydrological services in the US, particularly the USGS? Because from the presentations, from the slides that I've seen, it just seems, especially the Texas flooding, seems like people were caught unawares regarding the rapid rise in the river levels. So yeah, is there a strong relationship there? And maybe that's where the gap is still. That's why there's a reactionary response there regarding that. But yeah, how do we close that? So yeah, that's the question.
What's your name?
It's Jeremy.
Jeremy, thanks, Jeremy. Yes, that's a problem too that I've argued for. Actually, I wrote another article about this, and it said basically the USGS monitors water levels with stream gauges. The National Weather Service has the National Water Center, which has the National Water Model and predicts hydrologic conditions. And then they share that with the National Weather Service's forecast office. And yes, they're often stovepiped and the communication's not seamless, and it should be. And so organizationally, yeah, there's a lot of room to improve. In fact, those are the things I've argued for is organizational improvements. And the U.S. Geologic Survey, for example, has a large number of marine biologists. Why? And why are they doing stream flow when the Weather Service is predicting it? They should do one thing, and that's monitor and predict earthquakes and volcanic activity, which they don't do very well. And I could go into that because earthquakes can be predicted using ionospheric precursors, and they refuse to look at that. And that's another topic we could talk about on the side, but thank you, Jeremy. Any others?
I have one last question.
One last question, yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm Raj from Mauritius. I'm heading the meteorological service there. And I hope that I'm not going to lose my job in 5-6 years. Having said that, I think it is, we should take AI as a tool. And I'm pretty certain, I'll just give you an example what happened maybe 30 years back. When I just joined the office, there was my then director, he was having those models on a system. I forgot the name, I think it was Synergy, something like this. So he would just, go into the media, I'll just press a button and then I'll do the forecast. You see? He doesn't need meteorologists, it's just a director pressing the button and then he can say what will happen in Mauritius in the next 24 hours, which until now, it is not working. So to me, the AI is going to be a tool, this as a new technology that we are using, radars or whatever. People were saying, okay, radars are coming. We can do the forecast at any point in time. It is going to be precise forecast. So what is most important to me is to use AI as a tool for us meteorologists to make better forecasts and also take into consideration the emerging hazards that are important due to climate change. For example, what happened in the US. And we are really sorry what happened, but things could have been improved.
Right. And Raj, I actually agree with you. I don't believe that meteorologists will become obsolete. What I mean to say is that a large part of the forecast generation will be automatic.
Yeah.
And these agentic AI tools will allow for that. But the role of the meteorologist should be is they should become the configuration managers for those tools to make sure they are trained with the right data, they are configured properly to put out the right information, and be the quality control. So it's just going to make the work of a meteorologist more efficient. But by the way, when I was training, when I first became a meteorologist in 1989, anybody here doing meteorology back then? Okay, so that was when we did hand analysis, looking at the observations, plotting the isobars. No one should be doing that today. So it's the same for forecasting now. A tool, you're right, but it's a tool that's going to make the meteorologists way more efficient. Yeah. Thank you for your time, everybody. Enjoy lunch.